Hello, thank you for joining us for the webinar on Insights to Angular 2, Single Framework for Mobile and Desktop. Agenda for the day we'll be discussing about ES6 and introduction, Angular 2 and its introduction, important components of Angular 2, and also essential tools. The presenters for the day are Shruti Patel. She's the consultant at Nova. She's an effective front-end developer, loves open source technology, expert in Bootstrap, HTML5, CSS3, Angular 2, and PhoneGap. The second presenter is Parth Gia, also a consultant at Nova. He is a zealot towards open source technologies, full stack developer, wide experience in Angular 2, Ionic, Node.js, Mean, Cordova, and Liferay. You can follow him on Twitter. It's Parth Gia. And me, Rahul Sudeep, the host of today's webinar, senior consultant at marketing consultant at Novath. You can follow me on Twitter at Rahul Sudeep. Now, just to give you a brief on what Novath is. Novath is an open source enterprise technology provider who believes in delivering excellence through end-to-end solution. We are a 170 plus member team, and we are among the 20 most promising IT services company globally. We have certified resources to ensure quality, 100 plus projects served in last 2 years on time within budget, 60% repeat business, quality and client centric, and also worked on projects for portal, e-commerce, UI, UX, mobility, project engineering, and RIMS, as well as DevOps. Our partners are Amazon Web Services, Liferay, and also EXO. So what makes us special and why startups and enterprise are preferring us as their preferred partner is just because of our end-to-end solution delivery team that gives out design to development to deployment and support. To give you a brief on the services that we provide, on the mobile and web front, we do UX UI consulting, UI development, e-commerce portal development, mobile app development, and single page application development. When you come to enterprise portal and ECM, document management, ERP implementation, big data, performance assessment tuning, and also software product development. And on the last is a cloud and infra, in which we provide cloud consulting, DevOps, and remote infrastructure management services. So now I'll pass this on to Parth and Shruti. Right, before that, if you have any queries or any questions, please put down their questions on the tab that you see on the right hand side. Okay.
Thank you, Rahul. So we'll start with the first point, that is ES6 and introduction. We'll look over the points like what are the problems with current ES5, like why people call it messy. We'll see like what is the new change. And then we'll see like how will my browser know the new change. So Shruti, first of all, I hear that JavaScript is messy. I often see people spending their time more on browser instead of IDEs. So what are all those issues?
Okay. So as it is said, JavaScript is the most misunderstood programming language by the Douglas Cockburn. So let me take you through the different problems which are there in ES5 and we'll move on. So problems with ES5. The very first problem, as we are very well aware of it, is identifying issues at development. Let me explain you through this an example. Let's say we have a variable which is defined, which says that a is equal to 5. Now, when you run it in your browser, it will give you an error saying it's undefined. This is a runtime error and not a compile time error. The second is no classes like OP. Meaning for this is there are no classes in a JavaScript. function can be somewhat similar to classes, but basically JavaScript is a classless language. To handle the methods in this particular, we are using as a prototype. So there is an example which says that my class dot prototype dot method and its function. Now, if the particular logic is small, then it's fine to use a prototype and it's easy to maintain and read. But as we move on to an enterprise app, it's got tedious to read and maintain the prototype for this. Now, the next problem is new. New is nothing but an operator which create an instance for a user-defined type object or built-in object that has a function constructor inside it. So, if you miss the particular new keyword, it is dangerous. It says it will pass on the variable as a context for a window. Let me explain you this context window through an example. Let's say I have a function which has a field name. Now, if I try to initialize that and I forgot the new in this, if I try to print that particular variable, say Shruti, then it will have a global link. Global link meaning is that when you will console it with window.name, then you will get the variable which is being assigned as Shruti. Now, the next issue which is there is scope level. Let me explain your scope in brief. The very first scope is nested scope. Nested scope is nothing but a scope which has been within a direct scope variable. If it is within it, you can access a particular variable. Now, second is function scope. Function scope is nothing but a scope within a function. Now, let's say you have a function where you have a for loop. Inside your for loop, there is one variable where I. Now, if you try to access that particular variable outside your for loop, it will give you a value which was being rendered. Hence, it is said that for loop is a block, but it is not in a block scope. So, ES5 has only function scope and no block scope. Now, global variable. Global variables is nothing but a variable scope which is all over your program. Hoisting. Hoisting is nothing but using your variable and then declaring it later. This nothing but do is it takes your hoisted to the top declaration and then initialization. But if you try to initialize it and then the hosting of initialization does not take place. Okay, the next point is NaN, undefined, null, type of null and eval. You always use this type of where is triple equal to undefined in your code.
So quite some tedious issues. It looks like I have to perform some global hacks to avoid these issues. So the new standard is ES6, which I hear everywhere. So what is ES6 and why there is quite a buzz over there?
Okay, so let me explain you the features which are being there in ES6. The very first and the important feature of ES6 is classes. As we are very well known aware that ES5 does not have a concept of classes, ES6 introduced that. Classes is nothing but a combination of methods, attributes inside it. Now, the second, default params or using constant keyword. So in this, let me explain you this through an example. Here is one function which says add a comma b is equal to 5. Now, when you try to call this function saying add 5 and you forgot to pass in a value for b, it will automatically take a value b as 5. So it's said that default params are being used. And constant. Constant is nothing but it's constant throughout my application. Still you have a URL which you want to be a constant. Template literals in ES6. Template literals are nothing but literals which are being used. To use this template literals in ES5, we'd have to include an external library saying handlebar or menu. So ES6 has introduced its own feature as template literals. So in ES6, for using a template literals, where var name is equal to path, so if you want to access that particular variable in a console, you can put it up backticks with saying dollar, curly braces and the variable name inside it. So it will print you your path. Next feature is multi-line string in ES6. Let me explain you in ES5 how does it happen. In ES5, to write in a multi-line string, we have to append plus as an annotation inside it so that it can have a multi-line string application. But then for ES6, we do not need to write plus for multi-line string. It's just use a backtick and you will have a multi-line string available. Next is destructuring assignments and spread operator. Destructuring is nothing but a convenient way to extract a values from a stored data in objects or array. Generally, destructuring is being used where you have a location to receive the data, which is said as left side assignment. This is nothing but destructuring. So example of destructuring is here where A, B and rest. If you try to console A and B, you will get first two values saying 1, 2. But if you console the rest, you will have 3, 4, 5. Enhanced object literals. In enhanced object literals, for ES5, we do have to write a function keyword with a full colon for full name, which is being here said. But in ES6, we do not need to write such things. We can directly write full name and the methods well. Arrow functions. Arrow functions is nothing but a function arrow used, which is said as a fat, which is used in a CoffeeScript. Now, this arrow function will help you to allow your this to work properly. This will have the same value in the context of your function. That is, meaning is that it won't mutate. In ES5, when you have a multiple function inside it, for that you need to write that is equal to this or say underscore self is equal to this. But for this, you just have to use a fat arrow. Promises. Promises are introduced in ES6, which is out of box. Promises is nothing but a way to handle your async behavior. In ES5, to handle this async behavior, we have to add an external library. But ES6 does provide this feature as internal. So for this, we do not need to include an external libraries. This is where we can have a clean code and reduce the dependency on the external library. So promises is nothing but an objects which help us to store what and whether the event has happened or not. If yes, it has happened, then what was the outcome of it. The second point is classes and block scope construct introduced. So let me explain first block scope construct. There are two variables, let and constant. Let is a new variable which is a block scope variable, and constant is also a block scope variable, but it is immutable. And classes, we are very well aware that classes, test class and constructor, you can write up whatever you want inside. Module loaders. Module loaders is nothing but needed to use the browser so that we can have an independent modules. There was no native module supported before ES6 introduced. So ES6 does have its own modules. To get these modules, we have an external libraries, say AMD, CommonJS, RequireJS, and many more.
So wow, this looks pretty good. It looks like we are moving from the prototype-based language to object-oriented language. But hey, will my browser know about it?
No, your browser does not understand this language. So to do this, we have two options, which is transpiler and shim. Let's take first transpiler. Transpiler is nothing but which converts your code which is being understood by your browser. So transpiler is generally used for each browser so that it can convert your ES6 different features into a browser understandable language. The example of transpiler is Babel. The next is shim. Shim is nothing but a library which is being used so that you can use an extra features such as promises, new match function, array.form functions, and many more. Current ways to write ES6. There are many ways you can write up your ES6. The following are the ways: Babel, TypeScript, ClojureScript, Dart, and PureScript. And there are many more other ways.
So we'll look over the next point and start with Angular 2. We'll cover the topics like what is Angular 2. Angular 2 is written in TypeScript. TypeScript is one of the way to write ES6 standards. We'll see like is TypeScript is my only constraint or do I can write with something else? And we'll see what all dependencies Angular 2 needs. So what is Angular 2 and why it's a new buzzword for everyone?
Okay, so I'll explain you what are the different advantages and features of Angular 2.0. As it is rightly said by Angular itself that Angular is a development platform for building mobile and desktop web applications. So the very first feature is platform agnostic. As the word itself justifies that we can have multiple platforms for this particular app. Saying is that you can use it in a mobile, desktop, and many. Second is not coupled with DOM and HTML. As we are very well aware that Angular 2.0 is component based, module based. So the DOM and HTML are not directly connect with your module. They are independent of that. Third, written completely from scratch. Angular 2.0 framework is being written completely from scratch. There is no dependency of any other framework. Excuse me. Developed in a different language and independent of previous version. Saying is that the Angular 2.0 is written in TypeScript and the previous version, which is Angular 1, does not have any dependency on it and can be used for mobile as well as web apps.
So I see like Angular 2 is written in TypeScript and TypeScript follows ES6 standards. But let's say in future we introduce ES7, then again, are there going to be any drastic changes? And why Angular is written in TypeScript?
Okay. So let's see this particular diagram and I'll explain you through it. ES5 is the very inner core. After that, there was an ES6 which has classes and modules over ES5. And TypeScript is the superset of it, which has types and annotation. Why TypeScript? TypeScript has many features over it. The very first is transpiler and compilation. TypeScript has its own transpiler to convert the code into a browser understandable language. Second, types. There are multiple types and it is type strict way. So there are two types. One is basic and second one is advanced. Basic types are nothing but boolean, number, string and many more. Advanced types are insertion type and union type. Third one is annotation. Annotation for adding metadata. It's a way to add a metadata to class declaration for use by using dependency injection or a compilation directive. Annotation are being generally shown using @sign. @sign tells the TypeScript to call the function and pass the argument inside it. Classes, we are well aware of classes. Imports, as we know, it's a module based. We can import multiple modules component if that module is being exported. Language utilities, non-nullable types and read-only properties. These two features are introduced in TypeScript 2.2. So TypeScript is not the only way. We can have multiple ways to write our Angular 2.0. Very first is our old ES5. Second one is Babel. And the third one is Dart. Angular 2.0 dependency. Yes, Angular 2.0 does depends on few libraries. Let's see which are they. First, Shim. As we know, legacy JS engine behaves as near as ECMAScript 6, but that is for the modern browser. Your Internet Explorer does not understand these things. So for that, we have to use ES6 Shim. Second one is Zone. Zone library is used to detect the changes. Changes meaning is that when there is a click event, blur, focus, HTTP request or say DOM events. In Angular 1 there was digest, but Angular 2.0 has removed $digest inside it. So for that we are using zones. Third one is reflect metadata. Annotation, as we know, that is Angular 2 and TypeScript way feature. So it is being used to need understand the browser. So for that, reflect metadata is being added as a library. Last is System.js. As we know, System.js is a module loader. Module loader helps us to create an independent modules and load them. Important concepts of Angular 2. And we'll go through an Angular 1.0 versus Angular 2.0. Microscopic view of Angular 2.0. Important components of Angular 2.0.
Wow, that was pretty neat. So coming to topic of Angular 1 versus Angular 2, developers who don't know Angular 1, it's still a good sign because Angular 2 is written completely from scratch. But those who have background of Angular 1, I'll try to explain like what are the drastic changes. When I say Angular 1, it was completely structural and tightly coupled with my DOM. As in, I can initialize a module. I can initialize a module in my HTML. I can add some events, but they are tightly coupled with my DOM. My whole application was based on controllers, and variables defined in the controllers use scopes. Now, if I want to access something from others, then I had to use root scopes. But Angular 1 was completely scope based. To detect changes, Angular 1 used apply. When I use apply, it used to run some internal cycles for $apply, which used to run throughout the system. So directives was one just common function or some common template which used to come throughout the application. I used to make a directive and then achieve the purpose of reusability. Controllers, my whole application was controller based. Something which is inside the controller could not be accessed from others. Scopes, scope was something which is used by the controllers. Services external dependencies which could be injected and used throughout the application. Now when I talk about Angular 2, it is whole modular based. When I say modular based, it follows the concept of microservices. As in, if I plug out any module except the core module, my application is still going to work. Compared to controllers, Angular 2 introduces components. Again, components are totally independent and each component can be plugged into any modules. Now, Angular 2 is killing scope. We no longer use scope as we no longer have controllers. Angular.module. So this was defined at my JavaScript level and instantiated in the ng app in Angular 1. But now it is totally independent of DOM and we won't be needing it anymore. No more $digest. So Angular 2 introduces a library zone as we saw earlier. This library manages all the change detection. There are three different directives introduced. One of the core directive which we are going to use is component. So we no longer need to isolate directives separately. Let us look over a diagram which shows what all important components reside in an Angular 2 application. As you can see, I load my module. A module would contain a template, a component. A component would be bound to a template. To have some filters, I may introduce pipes here. To have binding between my component and DOM, I have one property binding, I have two-way binding, and I have event binding. Whatever services I use are totally independent of my module, and I can use or inject those services anywhere or in any other modules too. Looking over important concepts in Angular 2, there are several concepts introduced. We are going to look over each of these concepts one by one. Starting with first, modules. We hear the word module everywhere. We even hear the word modular phone. So what is modules? Modules is anything that couples a number of functionalities into one. Let's say I have a car registration service. Then the module for car registration service would include any methods that registers a car. Modules in Angular 2 introduces components. A module can have one component or many components. So module helps us to divide smaller functionalities and couple them into one. It injects several directives, pipes, services into one. You import things from other modules and you export things which you want other modules to use. Here, there is an important concept called encapsulation. Whatever methods I write here can be private, or I can just declare blank method and have my child classes implement them. This is pretty similar to Java. Here we see like we are importing several features from Angular core modules. One question which may arise over here is what's the difference between module and a script? Now script is something which we use under HTML. The script will have exposure to the DOM. So if I type window, the methods defined in the script would be exposed over there. But when I try to access the window object over here, it will return me undefined. Next, we'll look over how we can declare a module in Angular 2. Is by convention, there has to be a core module or my root module. So whenever I start my application, that root module needs to be instantiated. That's where I define my root module. Now, a module should have one component by default. Next, we would declare all those things which we import from others. So as you see, imports, we use some browser module and forms module which we are declaring in imports. Declarations is where we write our root component. In providers, we mention what all external services we are going to use. Basically, services are external web services which will return me JSON or XML response. In Bootstrap, I am going to mention which component is going to be declared by default. Now, if I want to add another component, I just have to use an array in the app component or in the declaration section. Now, we see a pretty obvious problem over here that a small application may contain one root module. But what about huge enterprise applications? So it is better to divide my root module into sub-modules. Those sub-modules are called as feature modules. Any application should have one root module with 0 or many feature modules depending on my complexity. Feature module is an independent module which consists of components as if they belong to a separate library. Coming back to my car registration service example. Now if I add user registered service example, I can keep it as a separate module. Now we have defined a module, but we need to let the browser know that this is a module you need to use. System.js for that define us with a proper syntax. I just have to call the method bootstrap module and it will get loaded into my browser. What all things we can do in the modules? One, have a root module and add many feature modules. Two, define providers. Providers are basically external services. Now those services I can restrict to a specific module, or I can keep it outside the module so it is accessible to every module. Lazy loader module. So sometimes some modules I don't need to load instantly. That's where I use lazy loading. Now the time where module gets loaded into the browser, Angular provides two types of compilation. Just-in-time compilation and ahead-of-time compilation. Just-in-time compilation is where the conversion of TypeScript to JavaScript would happen at the browser level. Ahead-of-time compilation is where it would happen at my source level and the browser would receive total complete HTML. demos, we are going to see how to load an ng module, how to have a feature module, and how to lazy load a module. We'll look over and come back to this example as we have linked over several other things here. Next, we'll look at components. Now, components is what we see in the HTML. Let's say we have a form. A form has several input elements. When I click on submit button, those things should be submitted instantly. All those things are defined in my component. So component is what we see in the screens. Each component can have some templates or style sheets. Each template will have several other sub templates. I can have other component loaded into my current component. Component rely on metadata. Metadata is nothing but I need to tell Angular like this is the style sheet you need to load for this component. We'll define it in attributes and pass over my values. Component is nothing but a reusable block which can be plugged into any module. Now Angular 2 or better say ES6 provides us the word constructor. So whenever my component is loaded, I need to initialize it with some predefined values I can directly use at the start of my component class. So I have defined one component over here. In the metadata I have said that this is my syntax which I am going to use in HTML. What my component looks I define in my template URL, and what are my style sheets are defined over here. I can pass multiple style sheets over here. I can have a Sass based style sheet over here. I can even use a less. Now I have my class loaded. I use @input decorator to say like this title would be dynamic and would be coming from my template. And I import the component module from Angular core. As we see, component is a collection of metadata. Metadata is the attributes where I define my style sheets, where my template lies, plus class. Class is where I define my constructor and private methods. Methods are basically click events or any functions which I need to use in the DOM, and the collection of a template. @input decorator gives us the ability to pass data runtime. We'll look over this decorator when we come to the decorator section. Next thing is encapsulation. So yeah, like we see a class, anything defined inside the class can be either public or private. So if I don't export, those things would remain in my class and I can only access it via my defined getters and setters. As we see, component is totally independent. So all we can do is plug and place the component in any module we want to use. Let's look over demo. So as we see, this is a template defined. Here we have used several variables which come from my class. This we have defined a constructor and we have defined some methods. Next is the template. Template is anything which I want to show on the DOM. A template may consist of any input elements, may consist of forms, or whatever I need to show it on the screen. Let's look over one example where I have a plus vote and a down vote example setup. In this component, I have two variables defined, votes, title and length. As you see in TypeScript, we can define data types over here. Now I'm initializing my title with Insights View Angular 2.0 and I'm providing a link and votes with 0. Then I define one function that says vote up, and every time someone clicks on it, I'm incrementing it. Similarly, there is a decrement function. In my HTML, all I have to do is call that function. This is how we attach events on it. We'll look over how we can attach events or how we can bind events in the next section. And to use it in my HTML, I just have to mention the tag which I have mentioned over here. So what all things I can do in a template? First, interpolation. It's one-way binding, or basically what handlebars does it for me. Next, I can use any built-in directives provided by Angular. Let's say ng-for, ng-switch case, ng-show, ng-hide. These all directives are provided by Angular. If I want to use any other component, I too can use it. All I have to do is inject it first. Next is I can add events on it. One event is, let's say, key up. So on key up, my custom method will be called. I can even have custom events called on it. So instead of key up, I can write my own event, my key up, and still achieve it. Next is two-way binding. The basic example which we see in Angular 1 is still applicable over here, but it just requires a simple hack. One-way binding, or basically property binding. We'll see this binding soon. Now this template works everywhere irrespective of my HTML. So even if it's a Polymer component or any custom template or any custom directive, this all things will work. Next is built-in directives and enums. We'll see that how many directives Angular provides by default and how we can use those. And enums is nothing but my center place for defining all my constants. So people having Java background would pretty much know what is enum and why it is helpful. Here I have defined one constant object with several statuses. Now if I wanted to do in other application, I have to create one static JavaScript file and just define those constants independent. The downside to it is that those variables would be exposed at my browser level. So, how many directives are there in Angular? First one is components, what we saw earlier. Components, we define separate templates and it acts as a directive. Next is attribute directives. So any directive that doesn't affect my template and it just alters the styles comes under my attribute directive. Let's say ng-style, ng-class. A key point to note is attribute directives always are enclosed in the square braces. Next is my structural directives. Any directive that alters or changes my HTML content comes under structural directive. Let's say I enclose a if condition and say if this condition doesn't match, then don't render this structure at all. Example is switch cases, ng-if, ng-for. Whatever structural directive I define in Angular 2 always has an asterisk first. We'll come to the next component, data binding. So, how many types of bindings can be done in DOM and component? First is interpolation. Whatever thing I pass from component to DOM, I can access it in double curly braces. Second is one-way binding. Things which I pass in square braces again can be accessible on the DOM. It is pretty similar to interpolation, but the general convention over here is using one-way binding for binding properties. Next is event binding. So whatever things I perform on my DOM needs to be sent back to the component, for which I use event binding. Next is two-way binding. Communication between DOM and component constantly comes in my two-way binding. Angular doesn't provide it by default. We use a simple hack, a combination of event and one-way binding to achieve this. Let's start with interpolation. Interpolation is nothing but an expression that gets evaluated in the double curly braces. Or we can say, that's my good old handlebars library. Now this evaluates mathematical expressions too. So if I just say 1 plus 1 in double curly braces, it will give me 2. So as you see, we write over here, bind my ng model with name, and I write name over here, and whatever I type in my text box get instantly binded over here. Now this example would serve an example for two-way binding too, but let's look over one-way binding, like my name gets instantly populated. Next is property binding. So any expressions which needs to be bind on an element's property, such as the style or class, we can directly bind it to any element, component, or a directive. It is independent of all those. Now this is in one-way binding, unlike from Angular 1. Whatever bind we do, it is from data property to target property. One important thing to note is this is not attribute binding. So if I just get the value and update it, then the property binding won't work. So we can't use property binding for getting value of a target or calling method on a target. So this is an example of how we bind DOM properties. This is an example of how we bind directive properties. This is an example of how we bind component properties. Now it may so happen we need to use property bindings outside of this. So the bindings which are available is attribute binding. Attributes are directly something which are going to change the attributes. Convention over here is start with attr. So here I am changing the callspan property with attr.callspan and it instantly gets reflected. Next is class binding. Just like attribute binding, I have to use a class.class name. Next is style binding. I have to prefix with style again. Next we'll look over event bindings, how we can bind events. Round braces basically tells Angular that anything I write inside my round braces is an event and the DOM needs to add an event listener to it. As we saw earlier, like votup was a function which was attached on click. So when I write click round braces, it is going to first find whether is there any native event such as click, blur. If it still doesn't find any native event, then it is going to look up at the component and then check, is there any component event defined on it? If it still not finds, then it will throw me an error. So events can be custom too. If an event is not found, then Angular looks up in the directives at the output decorator. And if it still fails, it will throw me an unknown directive error. The three types of events that can be possible are component event, directive event, element event. Directive events are basically events defined in the component with @output annotation. This is the element event. This is the component event. Next is custom bindings. So what if I want any input or output? Angular provides @input and @output decorators. @input is what dynamic text box I can add. Here I have mentioned @input property name string. Now this line would make sure that property name would be available throughout the class and it would be its type defined as a string. @output can be used when I want to bind any custom events to it. Next is two-way binding. Angular doesn't provide two-way binding out of the box, so I just use a combo of property binding plus event binding. So when I write it separately, it's like property binding, then adding event binding. In event, I pass current event. Based on event, I get the target and do manipulations accordingly. Now simple notation over here is just join those and we call it football inside a box or a stadium. Here we see we have added an ng model first as an event binding and then as a property binding. Now we will see how we can use @input and @output. I am declaring first @input size. So I am expecting a number in a size and this size is going to come from my DOM. I am declaring one event size change, that is my custom event defined in my DOM, and I have declared two functions. When my resize function gets called, some operations are performed and this event is emitted. This way we can have custom events binded over it, and in DOM I just have to call this size change. Next is services. Now Angular 1 provided lots and lots of components based on various design patterns. Starting with services, services was singleton. Only a single instance could be available throughout the application. On top of it, Angular provided factories. Factories would be just a function returning many values. Next, they provided providers and constants. Compared to all this, Angular 2 introduced a very simple concept and just we have class for it. A class can have any methods exposed as public and all we have to do is import it in module which we want to use. A service in Angular 2 is just a class. A class can have its method exposed as public. Now, when you compare it with Angular 1, it is very much simpler. Now, when we write a service, we need to know a dependency injection tree, like this is my service and it has to be injected when someone calls it. For that, I need to mention @injectable decorator. It's just like I have created an instance of service and then I will get it. One important point to note over here is services are registered in the module level and not at the component level. So services can be exposed or used at all the modules or all the components inside the modules. Now if I lazy load a module, my service wouldn't be injected at the root level. So my service would not be a singleton. So I am defining one class. I have constructor, blank constructor. I have defined one public method. So whenever someone calls this method, this string should be written. I am adding @injectable to let my dependency injection tree know. That's it. You can use service inside a service. After all, it's just a class. So again, it's much simpler compared to Angular 1. We'll see what's the difference between @inject and @injectable. Here I have one service where I have defined one constructor and use HTTP service. So when I import it from the start, this is going to be injected at the root level. The other option is to inject it at runtime and use @inject directly over here. Rest, everything is going to be pretty much same. We'll talk about dependency injection. So when we say injection, I need to tell Angular, hey Angular 2, get me this service. Angular 2 will reply like, sure thing, I can get it for you, but I can get it for you only if it is provided. So Angular 2 provides a three-layer tree structured dependency injection, which we'll see. We'll first see a demo or example. Here I define one class. In constructor, I am injecting this service. As simple as that. Now, Angular 1 had several problems in dependency injection. One was internal cache. So dependencies were always singleton. I couldn't use a factory over there. The other was namespace. So any external service which I need to inject, if it had the same name as my custom service, then it would be a problem and I need to change my name of custom service. Now this was tightly coupled with Angular and could be used as a standalone. So instead of this, Angular 2 comes up with total different structure. It says it's a tree of injectors. So my first level is when I use @inject, it exposes my APIs so others can create dependencies on it. Next, I use my provider to let it know that this is injectable, and here I create an instance of that dependency. Next, I just use the dependency instance that was created and import it. Next, we'll look at pipes. So pipes is nothing but just what we saw filters in Angular 1. Angular 1 had the concept of filters. Filters were something like if I wanted to have a search, or if I want to convert some date format to another format, or if I wanted to convert some currencies to other. Angular 2 revamped it and added pipes. Pipes can have various functionalities like you can have custom filter, you can modify values. Pipes are added at modular level. Now there are two types of pipe. One is stateless and one is stateful. Stateless pipes are nothing but just in and out. Like they don't care like what is happening. They have a specific purpose defined and they just change it. Let's say currency pipe. Its functionality is just to change it to another currency. Whether it is stateful, they manage the state of data that they are going to transform. We'll see async pipe. So these are some of the pipes which in Angular 2.0 are defined. We can see that they are pretty similar to filters. Let's say there is one async pipe. This is a stateful pipe that basically accepts an observable or a promise. We'll look at observable over next. Currency pipe is basically changing to currency. Date pipes basically used for date manipulations. Pretty similar to what we had in filters in Angular 1. Next is zones. Now when I say async operations, I need to define some of my execution context. So zone is nothing but an execution context for asynchronous operation. Angular introduces a Zone.js library which is basically responsible for handling all the change detection. We can have several operations over there. Let's say I can start like when my event was started, I can stop. I can save something when someone enters my zone or someone exits a zone. How this is helpful? There is one pattern called as observable patterns. So let's say I have 5 to 6 modules, and if one module gets changed, other modules needs to be notified immediately so they can perform tasks based on the change. That's where zones are pretty handy, as zone provides us custom methods or blank methods which we can change when we implement that interface. First thing is I need to fork that zone and I need to run it. Next, this many methods are defined in the zone as blank methods, and when we implement that interface, we can change those. So here I have written one before task like a console log and after task console log. So whenever my task is executed before and after, I have handle over there and I can write my custom logic over here. Next is decorators. Decorators is one extensive feature of TypeScript which provides us ability to manipulate inbuilt things. What all I can decorate? I can decorate a class, I can decorate a property, I can decorate a method, I can decorate any parameter. That pretty much covers everything. They are always prefixed with @ symbol. Some of the decorators defined. We pretty much looked over ng module, @ component, inject, injectable, pipe, input, output. Now, viewChild is when I need to obtain a specific target. Let's say I have a menu. When I click on it, I need to see my sub menu. That's where I will use viewChild. Now, when I implement any interface and I'm overriding that method, I need to use @ override decorate. Next is routing. So Shruti, as you might remember, there are a couple of concepts in routing. First, there was something called as view router. Then there was something called as state router, which was provided by Angular UI. So there was pretty much problems like which routing approach to go by.
Correct. that is what an issue for me. So can you just explain me what is the routing which is being there in Angular 2?
So first we will see what is routing and why we need routing. Routing is basically just one another method which allows us to separate our concerns. So as you see in single page, there is something hash followed by something. Now when I change it, some other thing should be loaded. Angular 2 provides one additional feature, that is authorization. Now based on roles, I might need to add several protection features like this role cannot see this page or something. That's where Angular 2 provides authorization and routing. Now a route defined can have following parameters. First one is path. Path is basically the URL which is going to be matched. Component. On change of a route, which component needs to be loaded, I define it over here. Sometimes it may occur I need to redirect it to some other place. That's where I use the redirect to. Path match. Now Angular 2 again provides one another feature called as path match, where I can have a partial matching of the URL if needed. Child route. If I have 2 or 3 parameters in my route and I need to define several children over here, I don't need to repeat those parent, and I just can add child routes over here. We'll see like this is one of the basic example where I have defined just path and a component. So on component 1, this component will be called. On change of to component 2, this component would be loaded. We'll understand route with a figure. As you can see, this is the root module which I have loaded. I can either use external route configuration or I can define my routes itself in my root module using the constant keyword. Now I'm loading the route module from Angular 2, which will enable the routing. Now on change to route 1, this feature module can be loaded. This feature module can instead be a component if I have only one root module. Each component then can have their own internal routes. So you can see like this is completely independent of this. So if I remove this feature module, my application is still going to run, only it's going to throw me an error at route 1. So this is the microservices architecture. So how we use it in Angular 2? First, we define the routes in a separate file or on the same root module file. I have defined one path. I defined component corresponding to it. As you can see, this is a blank path. So that is going to be my default route. Empty part is going to be a default route. :id is going to be the route parameters. Next is I need to import that router module. Next is I need to use the for route, which ensures that my route is going to be a singleton. Next is when the route is loaded, my route component template should be appended somewhere. For that I use router outlet. Next is if I want to link to other routes. I have several options. First one is just use router link and it will redirect to me to contact/free. Other one is use router link as a property and it's again going to be redirecting to me to same thing, but here my product ID is dynamic. Next one, if I want to use it in my TypeScript file, then I just have to use router.navigate. Now, if I want to access the route parameters, there are a couple of strategies over here. First is activated route. Activated route is just one another observable which is available throughout. I just call it and I will get the current active route. But as it is one observable or service, it's going to make a call, and that is going to be causing a bottleneck. That's why we often use router snapshot. Next is auxiliary routes. So it may happen one module or component may have their own routes. That's where Angular 2 provides auxiliary routes. Each auxiliary route defined can have its own child routes, its own auxiliary routes, and we can define usual route parameters or maintain the history stack. Next is how we can use guards in routes. Guards are something which will enable us to do authorization over routes. So how we can use it? We just need to pass one of the following methods over while we define the route. These methods can be can activate, can deactivate. Those methods basically decide like is the person having that role can go to that route or not. Can load also is provided, which from where we can check if it's a lazy loaded module can be loaded or not. Let's see how we can define route guards. So when I define my routes, I added one can activate. In can activate, I have passed the service. Next, I have used that service and I always return true, so it would be accessible for everyone. But I can write my logic over here. Next, this is one of the options. The other option is can activate is registered as an interface in Angular. So all we have to do is implement that can activate interface and write my own method. Next is lifecycle hooks. So one important thing which we often come across is to maintain the cycle, as in right from my component where my DOM or something gets initialized to when it is rendered to DOM. In between or in any stage, I want to perform some operations over there. That's where Angular provides option of lifecycle hooks. So lifecycle hook is any code that runs before or after each step of directive lifecycle. To achieve that earlier, we just added some timeout. Now we no longer need to use that timeout. Again, pretty same concept which we saw earlier is just implement its interface and then write our own method. The convention which Angular follows is on initialization, it provides an onInit interface with ng onInit. So let's say it's on destroy, then it will be on destroy interface with ng onDestroy method, which we need to override. We'll see like what is the usual life cycle. First, my constructor gets loaded, then my on changes applied because initial value gets changed, so this method, this phase gets called. Next is initialization. Next is if I want to have some checks over here, then this method, this phase Angular provides. In doCheck, I have many methods such as content initialization, content check, after view initialization, after view check. Last is when I go to some other route, my destroy method gets called. We'll see how it works through in this video. As you see, first is constructor. Then when I say data foo, my on changes is called. Then my initialization happens, then my do check happens. Then these sub methods are called. Now when I do a change over here, again my do check gets called. And when I navigate to someone else, my on destroy gets called. Here we see initialization method and destroy method.
Hey Parth, so this all looks good to me. Angular concepts, its feature. But is there a way to get up my code up running? Is there any kind of human kind of thing which can give me a boilerplate?
Yeah, Shruti. So Angular 2 took care of that point too, and they provide certain tools which can easily help us to get up and running in no time. So we are going to look over at Angular CLI and Augury. Augury is a debugging tool. First, Angular CLI. Angular CLI is just nothing but one command line interface. Earlier when I needed to add one skeleton, I used to go and search the Yeoman. But now Angular CLI comes by default. It's just another NPM module which we need to load. It's an open source project and maintained by Angular itself. It has various options, like if I need to do a prod build, I just need to pass the prod parameter. It is bundled with Webpack, which is a new fashion. It has end-to-end testing files automatically created. These are some pretty common features, like I can have a proxy file configured, I can have a SaaS or less support, and I can easily integrate third parties as it's just another node module package. So these are some of the quick commands. Let's say I say ng new webinar 1, it's going to create a complete blank project for me. Now when I want to add new components, I just need to add this command. So this command comes pretty handy. Next is Augury. Augury is just one Google Chrome developer extension tool which can be useful for debugging. It has various features such as the main router tree, the component tree, the change monitoring. And the next option is you can always use debugger. Now to use debugger, I have to specify my source maps as true when I configure my Angular project. When I set that value to true, my TypeScript is easily available in my console. We can see like this is the Augury configuration. In the right you can see that there is a router tree. This is my main module and these are the sub routes.
Thank you, Parth and Shruti. I know we have taken much of your time. We'll be able to take up 2 questions at the moment, and rest of the questions we'll be answering via email or Skype or on call. The first question is by Ashok. Should I need to go with Angular 1 or Angular 2? Parth or Shruti, anyone?
So it all depends on your use case. If my app is already up and running and there are not going to be any frequent changes, then I can still stay with Angular 1. Also, we are going to have one upcoming webinar on migration.
Migration from, I believe, Angular 1 to Angular 2, right?
Yes.
And we'll cut it short and we'll end this webinar here itself. And for Any other queries which you have, you can shoot us an email at marketing@knowart.com and we'll get answered it for you. Thank you.